Amazing. Let's go ahead and get into this. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for either tuning in live or catching the replay. My name is Kashira. I am an international board certified business and success coach who primarily works with high achieving individuals within the online coaching and course industries to not only build and launch their signature offers using organic marketing, but to also scale their businesses and their back end with automation, strong systems, and of course, with our limitless living frameworks. So today, I want to continue the conversation from yesterday's video. If you missed it, it is available over on Instagram as well as over on Facebook. We were talking a lot about hiring outsourcing, right? And don't close your ears if you feel like you don't hire yet. If you've ever hired someone on Fiverr or Upwork, that discussion was for you too. And we talked about how to assess if the hiring decisions you've made have cost you more than they've brought in, and what to think about and look for whenever you're thinking about outsourcing anything or bringing someone onto your team, whether this is a one-off project, a contractor, or a full-time employee. So that is one you want to go back to. But today I want to continue this conversation and I want to talk to you about the essential functions of a coaching business. This really applies to any business, any kind of service-based, any business in general, honestly. I'll just say that. The essential functions of a business, and then I want to take those and break them down to how this applies to small businesses, particularly coaching practices and course businesses. And I want to talk to you about why you may be experiencing so many bumps in the road in your entrepreneurial journey, whether you are part-time or full-time. This 100% applies to you. One of the big themes that I have in my content calendar for the year that I want to echo, that I've been talking about since January, is this concept of being both coach and CEO, of recognizing that while you have been blessed with a certain set of skills and expertise that you are happily sharing with your clients and your core students and your customers, that outside of just that function of sharing and delivering on this expertise, sharing and delivering this information, you also run a business. And if you want this business to grow, and know your goal does not have to be to scale. Everybody's goal is not to scale, and that's okay. But you still need to know how to run and manage this business, especially if you want to be able to enjoy the lifestyle that you are able to live as a result of this business. So that is what we're talking about today. Whether you're watching this live or catching the replay, if anything I am saying nurtures you, ministers to you, helps you, then do me a favor and share this out. It costs nothing to hit the share button, tag a friend in the comments. You can screenshot on Instagram and put it on your stories. Just capture my good side, okay? That's all I ask. So let's talk about the core functions of a business, of any business, right? So the core functions are this: operations, research and development, marketing and sales, oftentimes two separate divisions, human resources, customer service, accounting, and finance. Every single business has those core functions. And typically, the bigger the business, the more functions they tend to add, because they'll take these bigger functions and break them up. They will be broken into different departments and units and divisions, but you'll still notice when you look at the executive leadership of any company, and this is some homework for you, go and look up the executive leadership of your favorite company, whether it's a retail store or a brand, whatever, and look at their executive division, because that is going to show you how they have divided the functions of their business. They typically will have a chief HR officer, a chief finance officer, a chief technology officer, a chief operations officer. They'll have these various chief functions and executive functions to show you how they have broken up their business. But a lot of times we will hear this and see this and say, well, that is for big corporations. These are billion-dollar companies. Why does this apply to my business? I'm still trying to hit six figures, or I haven't hit my first seven figures yet. Like, how does this actually apply to me? It does still apply to you. And that is one big mindset shift I want you to make. I don't care if you haven't made your first dollar yet. If you have the goal of creating a business, you have to familiarize yourself with these functions and being able to create them within your business business from day one. I found a really funny Instagram reel of a woman. I wish I remembered her name, but she was a mompreneur, and she was doing like a strategy day for herself. She rented a conference room, and she basically printed out all of the roles that she serves in as both mom and entrepreneur on a piece of paper, and put each piece of paper in a different seat. So when she sat in that seat, that was the role she was going to play and plan for. I absolutely love that analogy, and I think that that matters here today, because when we think about time management, it's bigger than, well, what days am I going to make reels, and what days am I going to post on YouTube. It's bigger than that. It's really, what days are you going to give attention to each essential core function within your business, and then on those days actually knowing how you need to show up in the task you want to work on, the projects you need to be working on, the initiatives you need to be thinking about. So for most small businesses, they will take those big core functions and break them down into what we call the big three essential functions of small businesses, which would be marketing and sales, right? Operations and production, and then we have our finance slash our ops. And I want to break each of these down in terms of how these work, as well as the risk of not having them streamlined, which again is causing those bumps in the road. Marketing and sales, we are all familiar with, so I want to start with the easier one, right? We all know that sales is the life force of a small business, coaching business or not. So we know, especially as coaches, that we need to not only generate sales, but we need to generate leads, because a big part of our sales pipeline is going to be nurturing the relationships that already exist within our business, right? That's where your email funnels and your direct message interactions, your Facebook group, your communities, your text list, all of that, your phone calls, all of that comes into play, right? So when in addition to the sales piece within smaller companies, we also have our marketing piece. And if you are someone who maybe has an agency, does done for you work, you may also include account management in that. I did a live stream last week, and I talked about lead generation and the risk of not having a lead gen system. We defined the difference between leads and prospects. If you missed that one, that actually went up on my podcast today. So if you're a podcast listener, subscribe to the Her Morning Coffee podcast. We're on every major platform. It's 20 minutes, and it'll be the best 20 minutes of listening of your life, I guarantee you, because my goal with that video, with that audio, was to change your perception of what sales looks like for you in 2022, because the way that it looked in 2015, and you have a lot of people still trying to teach you 2015 strategies in a 2022 world, that stuff does not fly anymore. We have to reposition. Mindset work does not stop the moment you're no longer scared to spend $1,000. That is a huge misconception. We all feel like most of us had money management, money issues, money mindset issues. And so once you got over that and made your first big investment in your business, whether that was a coach, a course, an office, a piece of technology, it's like, oh, I'm good now. I've conquered. Girl, mindset work, mindset work, whoever's watching, does not stop with that one big shift. It continues on. And as your business grows, you're going to continue to have to elevate your mindset, because the way that you need to see and envision has to begin to expand. It has to continue to grow. So when we think about the risk of not having a streamlined sales and marketing division, the bigger thing to think about here is just that inconsistent sale. You're always in this place of having to chase the next thing. There's always this fear in the pit of your stomach every single month of, how am I going to make this happen? How am I going to repeat the success I previously saw? How am I going to get to this next client? And a big part of that is not because of self-doubt or things of that nature. That can be a factor. But a big part of that is because if you did hit your goals last month, you don't know how it happened. It felt like for you, it kind of happened on a whim, because there is no consistent, streamlined method to your madness. There is no dedicated, defined process your company has in place for marketing, for sales, for lead gen. So when I talk to you about, hey, I have a marketing system I want to give you, yes, it's a series of ClickUp lists and dashboards. It's really meant for you to have a defined strategic way to approach putting in your content ideas and now bringing out a full-fledged marketing campaign. There is a difference between content ideas and a marketing campaign, right? Another big risk here is brand reputation and lack of trust with your customers. So, people who don't have a streamlined marketing plan in place run the risk of always doing all of the things. And I feel like you all can probably think about someone, a very well intentioned person on your timeline, when it feels like every other week they have a new set of colors, they have a new niche, they're selling something different that's drastically not related to anything they've ever sold before. That is because there's no streamlined marketing plan. So when the last thing that they tried didn't work, instead of saying something's wrong with the marketing, they felt like something was wrong with their whole business. The last launch didn't work, so they're throwing their entire business out the window, their entire niche out the window, and they're constantly flip flopping to the next thing. It's like this shiny object syndrome when it comes to what you actually want to do in your business, right? And so this is a big risk, and it's different between there's a difference between kind of still being in that self-discovery phase, knowing you have a lot of skills and figuring out which one you want to use. That is very different than what I'm talking about here, because what I'm talking about here is coming from a place of fear, lack mindset, and just overall inconsistency. But the thing here, especially when you're in coaching and courses, this industry already has a lot of like stigma and bad reputation around it just because of, people who didn't have integrity within the space. So with this, the last thing you want to do is cause your audience to not trust you or to doubt you, because it takes a very long time to regain that trust if they even give you the opportunity to do so. I'm not trying to scare you, but I want you to think about how you invest personally. If there is somebody you come across on social media and there's something about how they're moving and operating feels icky to you, it's going to take a lot for you to open up your pocketbook to that person. Like, you're probably not even going to want to follow them anymore, right? So the way that you approach this is the same way your audience is approaching it as well, right? And so when we start to see all of these things, like people aren't building the no like and trust factor with me fast, my brand reputation isn't growing, I'm not seeing the sales that I want. Not only does that impact how your business performs, but then it impacts your personal psyche, because then you have these feelings of I'm always needing to start over. You have to face not hitting your goals over and over again. You're constantly like missing out on these new leads because we're not staying consistent and nurturing the ones that we have. Yes, social media is important, but take a step back from being in the weeds of trying to find the latest trending audio and needing to make this graphic here and needing to post this there. But take a step back and really look at sales and marketing in the grand scheme of a business function. The next core business function, operations and production, right? So we know that marketing and sales is what drives revenue, it drives brand awareness, it drives leads, but the operations piece, the production piece, basically means delivering on the brand promise or the program promise, right? So this means handling the delivery of your services, of your courses, of your products, as well as the customer service. So many of us are pretty good with serving our clients, right? When we think about the operations piece, a lot can go through the cracks when you have a coaching business. Something as simple as how defined and automated is your onboarding process? How defined and automated is the client offboarding process? How in touch with you and your clients are you during their entire experience, right? Are we just simply hopping on the phone and delivering and that's really it? Or are we really thinking about like their overall, how are they internalizing this? How are they understanding this? Are they comfortable enough with us to ask good questions? Like, are we pre-planning different things and activities for our clients to do? Because a big thing with coaching is that we will assume that our clients will just come to the table and know what they don't know what they need, and they'll just ask the questions. And because we answered it really well, they're happy. But you have to learn how to tap into your intuition and read between the lines with that. And that is where I talked about before with raising your rates and having higher end programs, that a little bit more is required of you than simply showing up to the Zoom call. And that looks like, when it comes to high end, let's say business coaching, for example, it's like at certain price points, I know that I need to bring more to the table than just this conversation. I need to start now bringing proven systems, proven frameworks. Like, there's a reason why for emergence, you're getting all of these resources, all of this stuff, because yes, you're paying for my guidance and expertise, but at a higher price point, you're also expecting proven access. You're expecting proven systems that you can immediately begin to use and incorporate. You want a little bit more. And even in my introductory level programs, there's still a higher price point. So that's why there's so many guides and templates and explainer videos, things that I'm almost forecasting are going to come up for you. And I'm putting this in here with you, not to coddle you, but to help you speed up your implementation. But again, if you want to play in this higher price point, you have to recognize that you have to bring a little bit more to the table. And that's where operations and productions comes into play. Nobody wants to give someone $5,000 to sit in a course portal and watch Instagram live replays extra blurry in your YouTube account. Like the days of that being a thing are so done. But if we're not paying attention to our operations and productions, we can easily assume that something that, not to be harsh, is honestly mediocre is the best thing since sliced bread, and then wonder why we're not getting any referrals, wonder why our clients are not re-enrolling, why we're not having a high retention rate in our programs, why you have to chase down every single person to keep paying their invoices. And I'm not talking about the one-off problem clients. I mean, it feels like every single client you have to do this with, right? That is where operations and productions comes into play. When we think about ops and production as well, our HR roles underneath this for small businesses and coaching businesses. So this is where you're thinking about, like what I said yesterday, how are you outsourcing the things that are on your plate that are outside of your zone of genius? And one big reason why a lot of coaches don't have time to flesh out their ops is because they're having to do all of these things. Like, let's say you're not good at video editing, so it takes you triple the time to edit your Instagram reel or edit your YouTube video or whatever, things that we could be getting off our plate. But again, we don't have any systems in place for hiring, for training, for secure intellectual property. All of those things roll underneath this. And the big reason why people don't have it, in addition to just not having the time, is that they feel like they're not big enough to have it. There's this misconception that you have to make a certain amount of money to care about operations, to care about systems, and that is furthest from the truth. And because of this misconception, this leads you to constantly being overwhelmed. You're either just overwhelmed in general by all of the things you need to do, or you're overwhelmed with all of the wrong clients, or you're overwhelmed with underpaying clients, and then you're constantly trying to crank out new digital products and new courses and new this and that to try to overcompensate for this gap in revenue, and honestly maybe even in fulfillment as well. So this is why I keep echoing that when you decide to come to Emergence, this is not a workshop where you simply sit and say, oh my gosh, this is so great, kumbaya, I'm inspired. And then you get back home the next day and you're like, I don't know where to start. I literally just saw this recently. There was a great event. I wasn't in attendance. There was a great event. And I was in a Facebook group, and someone posted in the Facebook group and said, I love the event, but I don't know where to start. I'm overwhelmed, and I don't know how to classify what I heard this weekend and how to start with it. And this is no shade to that person who created the event. The event was lovely, but this feedback happens a lot. I'm sure we can all think about at least one event we've gone to where it was great, but you came back with all these notes, and you're like, okay, well, how do I even make sense of this? Emergence is not that kind of event, because Emergence is going to feel like a real live VIP day, because we're going to be doing while you are learning. When you are copying and pasting the various dashboards and templates that I'm giving you, it's not just copy and paste and done. It's now copy and paste and now fill this out so that it aligns with actually what your business needs. And I'm explaining to you the philosophy behind how these systems work, how these processes actually work, how these things are methodically organized so that not only do you know why you need it, but you know how to now contort it to fit your business in its present moment, and then your business as it grows, right? Because yes, your operations looks a lot different when you have a max capacity of 10 to 15 clients versus when your capacity grows to now 50 to 100 clients. I don't want you to feel like, oh my gosh, I'm stuck again. It's no, I have a deep enough understanding of how this system works where I can continue to expand it and build upon it. So within Emergence, we're going to cover a big chunk of these core functions. At Emergence, we're going to cover your operation systems, which will talk about your SOPs, your finances, your HR systems, and the tools that you'll want to have in place for smooth client onboarding, offboarding, upselling, communication, and satisfaction. We're going to cover your marketing system. So if you know that you wake up every day trying to figure out what am I going to post, we're going to break down how to build a marketing and a launch calendar for well over a year in advance. This is beyond just simply buying content prompts. This is really understanding how your content calendar connects to your revenue goals and initiatives for the year. We're going to talk about how to content plan and batch several months in advance so that you're still advanced enough to not be overwhelmed, but you're not so far advanced where the content you build isn't relevant anymore. We're going to break down your sales systems like we talked about last week. You're going to get our system for lead generation and client conversion. You're going to have a systematic approach for tracking and engaging leads that your marketing content is bringing in. You guys are creating great reels, great lives, great podcasts, and we're just sitting it there and we're not doing anything extra to now convert the folks that loved it. There's so much money in your DMs. There's so much money in your comments. There's so much money in your email, and we're not tapping into that, right? I know we all want a bigger audience. We all want new people, but we're not maximizing what we already have right here. And we're going to wrap it up with day-to-day operations, especially for those of you that are full-time or ready to be full-time. You need to have an understanding of what does this look like to work in your business every single day, because I've definitely been in a position when I first quit my job of kind of waking up and it's like, I have all the time in the world. What am I going to be doing? And then still end up overwhelmed because there's never not something to do when you're an entrepreneur, right? So some of the things we're going to talk about. So if you have not heard, Emergence is going down live June 11th. Virtual tickets and in-person tickets are available. If you're in Dallas, pull up on me. And again, code CEO 2022 will get you $100 off your in-person or virtual ticket to this event. And the link is in my Instagram bio, thepowercollective.co, for more details. So let's get into our last core function here. And our last core function is going to be our finance and administration. So think about administration as like where your like virtual assistant, executive assistants kind of play that back end office admin space. But there's also tied into this your revenue, expenses, payroll, taxes, your performance management of your employees and contractors. This is often the most overlooked department of a small business. We don't care about the money until it's tax time, and a lot of you are either overspending on the wrong things, or you're spending on the right things but kind of in the wrong way, like we talked about yesterday, right? Like, yes, you need to hire people, but you may be hiring folks you don't really need, or people with the skill set that doesn't really align to what you need. Or some of you may be holding your purse a little too close, right? You're not opening the Birkin, okay? You're not spending anything at all. And you have no concept of profit margins and how much it really costs to run your business. If you are pricing your programs like this, I want to have a 12-week program. I'm thinking calls every week, and I'm thinking for 12 weeks, that'll probably be like $3,000. If you're pricing like that, 9 times out of 10, you don't have a handle on your profit margin. And this is not to be shady or mean. It's just to kind of open your eyes that basically you're undercharging, right? Like basically you have no real concept of the value you're bringing to the table, of your own hourly rates, of how much you really need to bring in to sustain the profit margins you actually desire, or haven't even really thought about what kind of profit margin you actually want. So a lot of small business owners outside of our communities will say, and when I say our communities, I mean the coaching community, their big thing is not having profit because they don't want to pay taxes. But if you're a high growth minded entrepreneur, you do care about profit. And if you're someone who's also planning for your life, like you want to buy a home, you want to acquire property, you know that you need to show profit over several years. It can't just be 1 year and you're going to get the best interest rate, right? So this is really, again, taking it out of this one moment in time and avoiding this one bill, but really now thinking big picture about the limitless life you want to have. I don't know your reason for wanting to be an entrepreneur, but I am sure somewhere in there, somewhere in that laundry list is freedom, is control, is being able to live the life that you want. Whether that life is a modest life, whether that life is a huge, mansion and all of this. It doesn't matter. There's no right or wrong. And no, don't feel guilty about wanting to have money. You should want to have money. There is nothing wrong with that. But if we have these big picture dreams, we can't keep assuming that we're just going to wake up and it's going to be there. We have to now operate in that space, because I guarantee you, if you can't manage 10 grand, managing 100 grand is going to be a lot harder. If you can't manage 100 grand, managing a million is going to be very difficult. Start to familiarize yourself with this stuff now. And if you have the money, hire an accountant, please. Like, hire an accountant. We're going to talk at the emergence event about bookkeeping systems as well. And even when you're paying for automated tools like QuickBooks and Wave, how you still need to put time on the calendar at the end of the month to reconcile your books yourself. Even if your accountant does your P&L statements, your profit and loss statements, you still need the time to actually go through it and review it, and really start to think about forecasting, because at some point, your business coach can't keep telling you what's going to happen in your business. At some point, you need to learn how to read your own historical data so that you can forecast, right? If you've been in business for a few years, you can look at historical data and see what historically has been your high months and low months in business so that you can plan around that, et cetera, things that I want you to think about. The one that I didn't touch on that I do want to wrap up with here, though, is your general management. And this is on top of all of that, right? This is why a lot of those executive leaders we talked about in the beginning, they all roll up to a CEO or to a VP who reports to the CEO. That's really like your general management area. And that's really going to be your vision mapping, strategic priorities and planning. That's asking the question, is this business on track to hit the goals we've set? Is the business on track to hit our 5 and 10-year vision? Is change needed? Do we need to restructure? Do we need to rebrand? Excuse me, how is, the industry around us? That's where your SWOT analysis come in. How is the industry in the world? Environmental changes, tech changes, policy changes, how can that impact our business? Because those things, as well as what's happening with algorithms, very much impacts how your business is going to move and how things are going to go. But again, we feel like we're too small to think about this, so we just don't, and things keep happening to us. Things keep happening to us, and we're constantly in this state of having to react. We're constantly in a space of having to regroup. There's no contingency plans in place. There's no planning in place. The way your business looks today is not how it's going to look in 10 years. So if you don't understand that now and you don't assess that, begin to implement and begin to embrace change now, it is going to continue to be a bumpy road ahead. So that is some food for thought for you to consider. With that being said, I am going to wrap up this discussion, but we will continue it again this week. So make sure you stay engaged, turn on notifications if you need to. Like I said, if you have been blessed by this session, you had an aha moment, you learned something, you just liked what you heard, please make sure to share this video out, tag a friend in the comments if you can, share this on your Instagram, and don't forget to get your ticket for Emergence June 11th. Your discount code expires on May 15th. So you guys have 5 days left to get $100 off either your in-person or virtual ticket to Emergence Live. You all have a fabulous rest of your day, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye.